poucas pessoas têm muito e muitas pessoas têm pouco.
It's funny how one sentence can encapsulate the social standing of an entire country. The country referred to is Brazil, and in the last decade, with large-scale productions of petroleum, sugar, airplanes, and coffee, Brazil has emerged as a key player in the global economy, wielding the type of first world power that was absent in the past. However, despite its recent advancements, when examining various social indicators, one finds that in many ways Brazil continues to face a plethora of third world problems, in particularly severe social inequality. For years, Brazil has been characterized by the large economic gap that stands between the rich and the poor. Although a substantial amount of growth has been seen in various economic sectors, extreme social inequality continues to be a thorn in Brazil's quest for modernization and development. In 2009, after being awarded the FIPSE Kappa Scholarship, I traveled to Salvador, Bahia to examine social inequality, and in particularly the way in which education reform, as seen through policies such as affirmative action, is being used to correct this historical problem. Since 2003, Brazil has begun to implement policies that require universities to reserve space for African descendants or the quote-unquote disadvantaged. With these mandates, many believe that Afro-Brazilians will attain the tools necessary to compete for quality jobs and to ultimately obtain an income that will shrink Brazil's economic gap. While this theory is compelling, many question whether or not it is sound. During my 2.5-month trip to Brazil, my quest was to explore the implementation of affirmative action and to survey the public's opinion as well. Salvador, Bahia, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Wonderful beaches, beautiful climate, rich in culture, a place where you can find everything and nearly everybody. In comparison to the U.S., Salvador is truly a melting pot of culture and people. Traveling about the city, one can encounter people of all colors, mingling, dancing, playing soccer, eating, everyone of every shade partaking in Brazilian culture. To a U.S. citizen, the social mixing may be a surprise, but to many Brazilians it is only natural, an extension of the pervasive belief that everyone here is the same.
Aqui somos todos iguais, não há por que diferenciar por cor, por religião, por nada.
In Brazil, hearing the saying, "we're all equal," is very common. Developing from the teachings of renowned anthropologist Gilberto Freire, the idea of a racial democracy is virtually an accepted fact of life, and a major argument for why Brazil has no need for affirmative action.
Você conhece cotas?
Sim.
Sim. Na sua opinião, o Brasil deve usar cotas?
Não.
E por quê?
Porque o Brasil é país de raça misturada, não precisava usar cotas. Todo mundo são iguais.
Many Brazilians hold the belief that Brazil is a country of social equality. Yet when one takes a closer look, it doesn't appear that way. Salvador, Bahia, similar to other major cities in Brazil, has a large population of the poor. Many Brazilians fill shanty towns called favelas and oftentimes live on less than $1 a day. And while it is purported that everyone is equal, it is very clear that a majority of those in the lower class are of African descent. Since the beginning of Brazilian slavery in the 16th century, people of African descent have been relegated to the bottom of Brazil's social hierarchy, unable to crack nearly impenetrable social networks or insert themselves into Brazil's formal economy. Many Afro-Brazilians have been forced to rely on street vending, domestic services, and/or illegal activities to support their families. The obligation rather than the choice to work in the informal economy has yielded very little. In comparison to the incomes of business owners and workers, informal employees are barely able to maintain their homes in the slums. The dismal social status of the Afro-Brazilian is clearly recognizable and statistically supported. Although representing only 45% of the total population, research indicates that Afro-Brazilians compose 64% of people living below the poverty line and 69% of those who would be considered extremely poor. With regards to inequality, these numbers speak volumes. However, in Brazil, such statistics are almost unneeded. It is virtually common knowledge that Brazilian money rarely falls in the hands of blacks.
Normalmente, a grande maioria do povo negro no Brasil é pobre, classe média, média baixa e pobre.
But why is this? Why do white elitists prosper, gate off their million-dollar homes, while blacks can only dream of such luxuries? This puzzling question has been addressed by a variety of studies, and while each has posited its own theory, there is an overwhelming consensus that education, and rather the lack thereof, is the key reason for Brazil's social disparity.
Na sua opinião, como é a educação no Brasil?
Péssima.
Por quê?
Porque não dá oportunidade para os pobres, ninguém tem condições de botar um filho para estudar, não tem nada. Péssimo, muito péssimo.
Então, o que o governo deve fazer para...
Procurar investir na educação, o que ele não faz.
Sim.
In the eyes of many, the best way to combat inequality and to decrease the number of impoverished Afro-Brazilians is to increase access to a university education, in particularly through affirmative action or quotas.
Você conhece cotas?
Sim.
Você, na sua opinião, o Brasil deve ter cotas?
Sim, eu acho que não a única, mas uma medida de reparação importante.
Por quê?
Porque com o advento das cotas a gente pôde ver que o número de estudantes negros e afrodescendentes nas universidades, escolas, aumentou. E eu acho que isso já é um ganho significativo. Não é a única maneira para se ter mais a representatividade negra na academia, mas é um ganho, sim.
Então, você conhece cotas?
Sim, conheço.
Então, na sua opinião, o Brasil deve usar cotas?
Com certeza, principalmente porque as pessoas de baixa renda, na sua maioria os negros, eles não têm a condição de estudar em grandes escolas particulares. Então é preciso que eles entrem na universidade através das cotas. Então, mas se essas cotas forem usadas para as pessoas corretamente.
According to David Lamb, in Brazil, education determines income. Similar to other developing countries, Brazil's labor market has abnormally high estimates of returns to schooling. In fact, after the 7th grade, each additional year of schooling yields a 15 to 20% increase in income, indicating that one's level of education, more than any other factor, predicts one's quality of life. In comparison to the United States, the salaries of Brazilian workers are largely dependent upon their knowledge and skills. The more experience and education an employee has, the higher the income he or she will receive. This positive correlation between education and status has served as the major argument of affirmative action proponents. In their eyes, the system of quotas will act as reparations and make up for the lack of education received in the past.
Cota se diz, tipo paliativo, uma reparação. Se a gente for pegar na história do Brasil, já existia cotas antes dessa polêmica hoje em dia. E era cotas para brancos, para filhos de fazendeiros, filhos de grandes políticos. E já iam para as faculdades, se precisava prestar vestibular, alguma coisa, já tinha vagas deles garantidas. E para bons cursos. É uma forma de reparação, porque o nosso presidente disse que no governo dele ele ia mudar o sistema de base. Até isso aconteça, a cota é paliativo.
In Brazil, the system of quotas has a substantial amount of support, none greater than that coming from Afro-Brazilian activists. Their pressure and promotion on both the national and international scene have led to the development of a variety of social programs in Brazil. While in Salvador, I had a chance to sit down with Walter Altino, an Afro-Brazilian activist, and asked him some questions about the quota system.
Você conhece cotas?
Sim, eu sou dos ativistas que lutou pela implementação das cotas aqui.
Então você acha que o Brasil deve ter cotas?
Eu acho que o Brasil não só deve ter cotas, como deve ter uma política, diríamos assim, efetiva.
Por quê?
Porque as cotas é uma das maneiras de se praticar a justiça. Justiça do ponto de vista do combate à desigualdade racial,
Sim.
institucional, diríamos assim, o combate à desigualdade racial que se manifesta tanto nas instituições como na sociedade de um modo geral, seja no mercado de trabalho, seja no acesso à educação.
With the work and dedication of activists such as Walter Altino, starting in 2001, Brazil began to address the issue of race as well as disparities in its education system. Following the United Nations Third World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa, Brazil set out to reform its education policies and focus on affirmative or positive action initiatives in communities of African descent. In 2003, these policies began to sprout in the Brazilian workforce and in state universities. And while these changes appease some, as with any other policy, Brazil's implementation of affirmative action has garnered criticism from both sides.
Alguns concordam com esse tipo de política, outros não.
While Afro-Brazilian activists have strongly supported affirmative action, many individuals are not convinced that this is the proper step for Brazil. In fact, a host of critics feel that a U.S. developed model is unfit for a Brazilian society. When speaking to UFABA professor Mark Carvalho, he spoke to this issue.
I know there's an argument in academic circles that, well, maybe this is a North American practice that doesn't translate very well to Brazil, and I haven't really evaluated that systematically, but I think it probably can be applied or even expanded. One doubt that I've had is that I felt, from what I know of my father's involvement with affirmative action in the U.S., that it's something that really involves a lot of investment of energy, of people's time, of resources, and I've always had some doubt about to what degree they were going to be able to apply these resources here in Brazil.
Lack of investment on the government's part has been a major concern for people on both sides, and yet it is the question of race and how it is defined in Brazil that really has the public reeling. In comparison to the United States, one finds that in Brazil, racial identification is far more enigmatic. In the U.S., as a direct result of the one-drop rule and a variety of government-implemented discriminatory policies, there is generally a clear distinction between who is white and who is black. In Brazil, such a dichotomous system does not exist. Today, the national census is composed of 4 racial categories: brown, white, black, and yellow. While the census requires one to identify with one of these 4 categories, in Brazil the overall concept of race is not very strong. In reality, the national census hardly reflects the true system of Brazilian identification, which relies on color rather than race. In Brazil, one identifies his or herself on a scale of a wide spectrum of colors. Brazil's weak identification with the concept of race is largely a product of the idea of a racial harmony. As aforementioned, Gilberto Freire was instrumental to the belief that Brazil's extensive racial and cultural intermixing allows for only one group to exist, and that is Brazilians. And while a large group of individuals subscribe to the concept of racial harmony, there are others who contend that only 2 races exist, black and white. These individuals have used this idea to promote the implementation of racial quotas. Yet with racial quotas, many believe it's a form of reverse racism, and furthermore, that other white students may believe that an Afro-Brazilian was only accepted into a university simply because of his or her color.
Cotas?
Sim.
Não.
Por quê?
Porque eu acho que está criando uma forma de racismo.
Sim, uma forma de racismo, sim.
Racismo e classismo. Eu acho que o governo deve educar as pessoas terem as mesmas oportunidades desde criança nas escolas públicas, a mesma oportunidade da escola particular, entendeu?
Sim.
Se o governo incentivar mais o estudo de uma criança pobre, negra, desde criança, ele vai concorrer igual com o branco.
Ah, sim.
Tá entendendo? Então, se você cria cotas, o que acontece? Vai um negro e um branco. O branco vai olhar, o negro entrou na faculdade porque o governo ajudou. E na verdade não, a maioria entra porque realmente é bom aluno, é bom estudante.
Sim, sim.
Entendeu?